Welcome to Conspiracy 420. This is the Son of Sam Chronicles with Denaro, RockerMike, Rossi here. We're going to talk about now the very last shooting in the Son of Sam shootings. This was in Brooklyn. Okay, it happened July 31st, 1977. This would be the infamous Violante Moskowitz shooting that would get Berkowitz arrested, okay, based on things that happened at the scene. It was the most witnessed as far as eyewitnesses to everything happening before, during, and after the shooting. It to me was the most brazen out of all of them, really, okay, because they had to realize where they were. They were going to have witnesses, and it almost seemed like they didn't care. Okay, now there's a lot of conspiracy theories with this, the background of it we'll get into, but right now let me just give a little overview. It happened July 31st, 1977, but on the 29th, it was the year anniversary of the very first Son of Sam shooting. Wow. And, you know, the Omega Task Force was in, you know, full effect. They figured they could blanket the Queens and the Bronx because that's where shootings had happened in the past. They were looking for anything suspicious. They were checking the bridges and everything like that between Queens and the Bronx, looking for any kind of you know, they thought he would hit on the anniversary. Okay. Right. It was one of the largest dragnets the city ever did as far as trying to catch anybody. Now, little did they know that he would hit Brooklyn. All right, that was the last thing they were thinking.
We're in Brooklyn. This is the Bath Beach section. And keep in mind, the police were looking in Queens and the Bronx, okay, for the Son of Sam shooter or shooters. And for some reason, they never thought that he would strike down here. But right behind us is the shooting site. This is where Stacy Moskowitz and David Berkowitz were in their car when the attack happened. We're here with Rossi, Denaro, who's never been here before.
No, it's the first time.
And Howie Edelman, right?
Edelson.
Excuse me, Edelson. And he's a very knowledgeable man. We're going to have him talk a little bit. But this site is very important. This shooting and everything was very different than the others because there were plenty of witnesses. And this was also the shooting that ended up with David Berkowitz getting caught and captured because of the parking ticket just on the other side of this park. And Howie, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about this. Sure. What do you think about the fact that one of the witnesses saw the shooter come back wearing a wig and everything, possibly, okay? Do you think that, there was a getaway on this side, or what do you think?
I think a lot of people saw the shooter that night. There was somebody driving on the belt that saw somebody walking with sunglasses and a wig and a brown paper door.
Right.
A couple walking their dog over here, saw somebody coming through a hole in the fence. They catch a glimpse of him, he backs up. And then you have Tommy Zano, the best witness of the whole night, sees the actual shooting, sees that figure, and then down there at the getaway car, as it were, you see there's another couple that sees that same figure.
Right.
So that shooter is seen throughout this whole place.
So on that night, Stacy Moskowitz and Robert Violante, both 20 years old, and from the Bath Beach, Bensonhurst area, were out on a date, and they ended up at the Shore Parkway area along the Belt Parkway. It's kind of a narrow one-way road that runs along the Belt Parkway on the, I guess you could say, the westbound side of it. and there is a pedestrian overpass.
Yeah.
Okay, and they parked there. Okay, there's a playground. They actually went twice there that night because their date involved going to see a movie. Okay, and it was New York, I believe, with Robert De Niro and
Right.
Liza Minnelli.
Another Son of Sam date.
Another
date
date,
night.
Son of Sam date movie. And both were from Brooklyn, and both at that point with the year anniversary had just happened, and the heightened fear. Both of them told their parents they would stay in Brooklyn because there were no shootings in Brooklyn. Nothing had happened, so nobody thought it was going to be there. Unfortunately for them, they were involved, but they were parked on Shore Parkway by the pedestrian overpass, and the two were in the car. This would be about 2:30, 2:40 in the morning, approximately 2:40 or so in the morning, and a shooter would appear next to Stacy Moskowitz in the passenger seat, and shots would be fired, striking both of them, okay, in the head, all right. Robert Violante was blinded in one eye and severely damaged his other eye, and Stacy would have severe head damage, and she would eventually pass away in the hospital a few hours later. Now, where they were parked, there was another car slightly in front of them that had another couple in it. Okay, Tony Zano, he was with his date. I'm sorry, Tommy Zano. He was with his date, and he actually got a good view of what had happened. The way he saw it in his side mirror, he had a Corvette. Okay, his side mirror, and then in his rear mirror, he did see the shooter approach the car and shoot.
According to Tommy, a Corvette rearview mirror is wider than most.
Yeah.
So he actually had a view of everything behind him. Almost like I don't know, what is that, 140 degrees?
Yeah.
So he was able to see the van that was parked over here.
Right.
Where the gunman started his walk across the street. Took about, we figured out, like 4 or 5 steps, and boom, pulled the trigger.
And said very casually walking.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Nonchalantly.
so nonchalantly. And another couple had seen the gunman come out of the park, walk nonchalantly up to a parked yellow Volkswagen, empty, goes to open it, sees them watching him, stops and walks into the park.
So he was going to get in the car, and then he
He
hesitated.
realized someone saw him, so he walked away.
Yeah. Which draws even more suspicion.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Let me ask a question. So this is probably the site that had the most witness. Did they get the most sketches out of this shooting over here on this side?
They got a sketch. Tommy Zano was able to provide a very good sketch of the shooter.
Actually.
Yeah.
Two different sketches they came up with, which they didn't release right away. They weren't released till well after Berkowitz was
and they didn't
shot.
look like Berkowitz.
And
right?
they didn't look
Not
like
at all.
Berkowitz.
There were a total of 3 unreleased sketches from the night. And then it looks as though the sketch that they used for the driver with the long hair that almost looks Polynesian.
Yeah.
They mixed that with short hair, and that's the one that was released.
Right.
That next day or whatever.
So that was the third sketch. The third sketch was actually the
fourth.
Volkswagen
The fourth
driver.
was an amalgam.
Right.
That looked like nobody. That
That's
anybody seeing this was like.
I'm not sure why they did that, because they knowingly took sketches from Tommy Zano of the shooter and a sketch of the person driving the yellow Volkswagen, and as Howie said, put them all together and made one sketch.
Yeah.
To me makes, I don't know, I'm not a cop, but
I don't know
that
why you would
doesn't
do
make
that.
sense.
Yeah,
They probably do that to try to get something that it might trigger somebody. I remember
maybe.
this. I do that. That's why
Maybe
they
it
do
looks a
something
little like
that. Yeah.
somebody, and
Yeah.
it triggers somebody. Could be.
But you think about it, none of these sketches look like David Berkowitz, right?
The first one does. The
first one
Warrior
did.
sketch looks like Berkowitz, but the
rest-
other,
there was
the
only
other
one that did.
8 sketches.
Yeah, the only one that I thought looked like him was the one that was lingering around Voskowitz. That was the only one that really looked where
Because that was him.
because it was him.
It was him,
Because
yeah.
it was him.
He didn't do the shooting, but he was
He
there.
was the witness. He
We were
was
just
the-
over there
You're
last
right.
episode.
I stand corrected. It's actually 2.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking there's I think the police put it out, but there's nine sketches. You know, three going across, three, and the first one was from Warrior, and that's definitely, to me, it's definitely Berkowitz. And then there's one, I'm gonna say like the 7th or 8th.
Yeah.
Was Berkowitz.
But
Right.
I got to say, you know, I was living in the Bronx at the time,
Right.
and there were, you know, wanted posters, Son of Sam wanted posters
Sure.
everywhere, and the only one that I ever saw was the DeMasi shooting. That was the only one you ever saw. Wanted, Son of Sam. That was it.
And they used that. I mean, the
used that for
newspapers, whenever they wanted to put a sketch up of the Son of Sam or the 44 caliber killer, you're
was
right.
it.
It was always the Lamino DeMasi
Yeah.
sketch.
Wow.
Parted
which
to
is
the
kinda,
left, that
it's
one.
kind of weird that, you know, they did get sketches at other shootings,
Right.
but they always went back to the third shoot.
Okay. Also, the famous Volkswagen was seen in the area.
The sketch of the Volkswagen driver certainly looks like a weak car.
Right.
But that's not really that conclusive. Being it's a sketch from a witness, it may or may not be true, you know. But this is I believe the 3rd shooting scene where a yellow Volkswagen, you know, is in here, and Maury Terry ascertained that there was a yellow Volkswagen parked in the car, driveway.
Right.
During that time period. But of course, everyone's got to remember, back in the 70s, Volkswagens were $2,000. Everyone had a Volkswagen.
Yes.
It was a very affordable car. And I'm not a car guy, but just from my personal recollection, there was a black model, a red model.
It was a yellow model.
A yellow model.
Yes.
A dark blue and a light blue, and that's pretty much it.
There's a couple
colors.
colors.
So the fact that, you know, a yellow Volkswagen is you know, it has seen, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the same Volkswagen. That's been the, you know, $64 million question for the last 45 years.
And of course, we all know about the eyewitness that actually placed Berkowitz, and we also know about the infamous fire hydrant where he got the ticket about 2 blocks away from the shooting, which would eventually take him down. Okay.
Right.
So let's get into this call. Well, first of all, I mean, what were your thoughts when you heard about this shooting? Did you? Because already we had the Son of Sam was in the headlines, so you had to be thinking, "Oh God, he struck again."
Right. Yeah. So this shooting was highly publicized, and there seemed to be a lot of information immediately following. My memory is you know, I mean, I certainly could tell you the story, but trying to go back in time to like the day after what I read in the papers, what I heard in the news, I really can't.
Okay.
I really can't help you there.
Well, we do know the story. So.
Yeah. So I mean, I could certainly tell you the story as I know it anyway. And there's in this shooting, as you mentioned, there's a lot of eyewitnesses, and there's a lot to unpack in the story, more so than any other shooting. And I guess the highlight of it is Tommy Zano actually seeing the shooting. Mm-hmm. So just to go back to the beginning of the story, Tommy Zano was parked with his girlfriend in his Corvette, and they were right under a street light, and it was basically two bright for him to make out.
Right.
So he moved his car about, I don't know, 30 feet.
This was a lover's lane, though, this area.
This,
More than any of the others, right?
Yeah, that's a good point to bring up because
Yeah.
for some reason, I guess it's romanticized, but for some reason, people think of Lover's Lane and Son of Sam, in the same sentence.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, none of them were Lover's Lanes except for the last shooting.
Right.
But you know what? What's the old saying? Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. So the story goes as most people think they know the story of Son of Sam. They say, oh yeah, couples got shot in Lover's Lanes, and there's a few things wrong with that sentence. But not
Sounds good.
It sounds good, but none of them were Lover's Lanes except for Brooklyn. I actually went there with you guys a couple weeks ago, and it's I don't know. I guess it's, to me it's really not a Lover's Lane, but we could stretch it.
At night
I could see it. Right, I could see
You know what
it.
the thing is? Think how many people must have been out there, even though it's July and it's summer, and at 2 in the morning, that area, there's a bunch of buildings.
Well,
It
yeah.
was like there was a lot of
there
people
was
living
tons of
there.
there was tons of people
out. People
So-
were double and triple parked on the street.
Because I just
So,
remember,
yeah.
we're going there and we're walking and we're shooting across the street and we see the light pole and then you see that huge park. There must have been people.
Right.
And it's like a gigantic park, and then you got that overpass.
Yeah.
So it's like an area. It's like, how the hell can anybody shoot anybody there?
a few blocks down. A few blocks down from the shooting, I'm not even sure if we discussed this when we were there, but there was a block party going on.
I think Howie might have mentioned that.
Right, so it just so happens that John Catalano, who is a member of the official Maury Terry Facebook group,
Right.
he was, I think he was too young. I'm guessing he was 12 or 13. But he was there, and his uncles and aunts and parents were there, and they did. I believe it was one of his uncles actually saw a guy that looked like Berkowitz prior to the shooting.
Okay.
Yeah. So it.
But did Berkowitz approach them and be like, "Hey, what's up?" or something like that?
Yeah.
There's some
Yeah,
reference
it's like
to that.
what's going on here. It's a
He
block
and he
party.
didn't know anybody, so nobody knew him.
Everyone was very leery
Like,
of
who
him.
are you?
Exactly.
To ask, they're kind of odd to
Right.
go up to strangers
And-
in the neighborhood.
And I believe this was like
Especially that neighborhood.
early in the evening. I'm taking a leap here, and John, forgive me if I'm totally off base, but I'm guessing this happened like at 9 o'clock at night, and so that's one of the side stories. Again, going back, Tommy Zano moves his car up, and Robert Violante shortly after that
Pulls into the
pulls
spot.
in, and custom made parking spot right by the footbridge that crosses over the the Belt Parkway,
Right.
and it's right underneath a street light, which is still there, and there was a van parked across the street.
Across from where they were.
Across from where Violante parked, and I believe the yellow Volkswagen was the yellow Volkswagen was in the same vicinity.
So all right, the shooting happened, and then how did they get the cops in there? Like, who did people run to get them?
When the shooter crossed here, shot Stacy and Robert. They were both shot. Robert was blinded in one eye, and he had severe eye damage in the other eye. But Stacy was shot in the head. Basically, I believe he probably ran this way. Okay, through this park. Okay. Now on the other side of the park, there's another cross street right there, and there was a couple in a car, and the woman specifically remembers seeing a guy that looked like he had like.
She was a beautician, right?
Yes. She was
That's
a
why
beautician, so she knew
Yeah.
he was wearing a wig.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Wow.
But it was like a cheap. She said a cheap nylon wig.
Mhm.
Okay. And that he looked like he was running out of the park like he just robbed a bank.
Right.
So she made notice of that. She tried to look at his license plate. She got a couple of numbers, whatever. But he took off in the car
Right.
at that point.
He got into the Volkswagen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Volkswagen took off, and
With the lights.
with the lights out, and almost got into an accident at the next intersection. Okay, and got into a, the person that almost hit them, they got into a little back and forth, and that guy chased the Volkswagen in a fit of road rage, you'd have to say.
Right.
Okay, and
We actually followed the path.
followed the through the neighborhood, and lost the Volkswagen as it approached the Bell Parkway entrance at Bay 8th Street. Okay. Now, if you remember when we drove around there, there's that entrance where you can go west or east.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And he didn't. The guy following didn't know which way the Volkswagen went, so he lost it. He guessed he
Right.
probably went the wrong way, or he lost.
He guessed west and
Maybe they went east, or who knows?
Right.
He lost the car.
I wonder if he would have catch him if they would have shot him.
But what's interesting is he didn't make note of the license plate number, but he noticed it may not have been New York plates. It may have been
He
Jersey
said it
plates.
might have been
Wow.
Jersey plates, yeah.
Yeah.
Jersey then was that like
That
tannish.
tan, yeah.
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 Like an off-white tan, yeah.
There would be a big difference. You'd notice it, you know.
But
So-
the cops, what's been reported, the cops did extensive searches in the New York area, meaning New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut,
Yeah.
trying to track down the yellow Volkswagen. And it was a daunting task that went nowhere. If my numbers are correct, it was something like 20,000 cars, 20,000
area.
yellow Volkswagens.
Wow.
So,
You see them all the time.
and of course, they not having an exact. To me, they should have been able to narrow it down to a couple anyway, because they had, if I'm not mistaken, they had the first three letters,
I think
numbers.
it was a G, U, and a D,
Right, or
something like that.
GUR,
Yeah,
GU. Yeah, so they had of the six alphanumeric characters, they had 4 of them, and it seems to me they should have been able to cut down that list to a number where they can actually make some phone calls and ring some doorbells.
But there's also a theory that they were just stealing license plates
Right.
and replacing it for every
Could have very easily
hit.
been
Oh,
doing that.
wow.
Yeah.
And not only that, I always thought, back then, Pennsylvania and New York were very similar.
Yes, plates.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
It was
Gold
yeah.
and blue.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's true.
maybe Pennsylvania was a shade more orange, but
It was a darker blue tue.
yeah,
But they were. You're right.
in the
they were
dark,
similar.
who knows?
And like you said, there's a good chance that the plates could have been stolen, or just because those plates were on the car, a car could be borrowed. So it's not necessarily like you're going to get. Here's your guy. He owns the car. It must have been him driving it. So. I'm not really sure. The police never really gave a final conclusion to that story as to why the investigation went nowhere. But right,
Okay. But what's interesting is Berkowitz himself, you said that he was seen possibly a couple hours earlier, kind of trying to, make small talk with the people at the party. But he was also seen right before the shooting by his car. Am I right?
Mhm.
Okay. Now his car was parked about 2 blocks away. I believe it was Bay 16th Street, something like that. And he was witnessed there because he had gotten a ticket. Right?
right.
Now, obviously he must have known, and he was parked at a hydrant. That's why. Okay. Now he must have known that. God, I don't want to.
I think that that statement calls for a little.
Do
like,
it.
You know,
Explain.
well, this is the thing that always puzzled me. It's like here you have the serial killer who has eluded police for 12 months, and he's gonna do it again. And he parks his car in a hydrant. I know it's 2 o'clock in the morning, but I also know from all the eyewitnesses that it was still a very active.
There was no way you weren't going to get a ticket.
So, why in God's name would you park in front of a fire hydrant? Now, this is a rhetorical question. I don't think there is an answer. You know, we can all make some assumptions. You know, maybe Berkowitz wanted to get caught. That's a surefire way to get caught is to park in front of a fire hydrant during a shooting when the whole New York City police force is out looking for the Son of Sam.
Right.
I don't know. I just think it's very, very strange. But go on with the
I mean,
story.
and you know, he at that point the shooting hadn't happened yet. Now, keep in mind we're talking about a distance of about 2 blocks.
Right.
Okay. And
Two
long blocks.
Yeah.
2 long blocks.
Very long blocks.
Now that places him 2 long blocks away in a matter of only a few minutes to get over there.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, somebody else, when the shooting does happen, sees somebody else with a wig on run through. Tommy Zano, I think, even had a comment about the guy's looks, or the person's looks, and it didn't describe Berkowitz.
No.
No.
The person Tommy Zano saw didn't, with a wig or without a wig. He created, or his description, the police were able to come up with two sketches of the shooter.
Yeah.
Wow.
And again, let's just forget about hair for a second, because the wig thing is that one person said it looked like he was carrying a wig. Other than that, no one ever mentions wig. Although I shouldn't say it. Tommy Zano says it might have been a wig.
Something like that, yeah.
But the hair is kind of like sticking out. So let's say for argument's sake it is a wig. But the rest of the facial features, like a pointed chin, it's definitely not Berkowitz. And Zano was close enough to give a pretty good description to the cops.
Right. Okay. Basically, as we wrap up this episode, is that it's highly unlikely, almost impossible, that David Berkowitz did this.
Could have done it.
Which we'll get into more in the next episode.
Okay.
Thank you.